Welcome back, YouTube. It is another cold, rainy, nasty Saturday here in North Carolina. Last Saturday of February, so hopefully the weather starts to turn, because I'm a summer person, definitely not a winter person. So today, in order to kill time on a Saturday, I'm back working on the Mustang, and I am going to figure out exactly how to put the battery in the trunk. I ordered one of these kits. I think it came from American Muscle. Aluminum box. It's just got a blue protective coating on it. It will be, aluminum, bare aluminum once I take that off. Trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to get the battery in here. The wiring is the easy part. The mounting is the easy part. What's not the easy part is the fact that I like to make my life a whole hell of a lot harder than it needs to be. So I am going to mount a cutoff switch for the entire electrical system. Why? Because I can. I just think it's kind of cool. Do I need it? Absolutely not. Do we need it if we ever want to go racing somewhere down the road? Yes, but this is not going to qualify for that because I plan on putting it in the trunk, and if I'm racing, this has to be accessible from the outside of the vehicle. So that's not going to work. But I got to figure out exactly where I want to mount it. I'm pretty sure that I want to mount it here on the back side of the box, and then so it's functional. You can reach the switch with the trunk open. But yeah, that's why I'm hesitating. I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to do this at this point. All right, so what's going to happen behind the scenes on this switch is I'm going to have power coming in from the battery, and then I have it jumpered over to the second circuit within this switch. So from the two lugs that are after the switch, in other words, when the switch is in the on position, these will both be powered. I need to run 3 individual feeds off of these 2 lugs. One feed is going to go to the front of the car. That is going to be the starter and the electrical system on the car. I'm going to feed right into the factory system. A second feed is going to go to the 2 amplifiers that we put in the last couple of videos. So they have their own circuit. Typically you would have to run that power directly to the battery anyway, so that works out well. And then the third circuit is I'm going to feed my alternator back to the switch instead of running through the factory wiring. That's going to be a 2-aught gauge wire, probably a little overkill, but I do have a 230 amp alternator on this car. I put that in quite a while ago. So I'm going to run the alternator, the amplifiers, and then the main car circuit for the starter off of this switch. That way, once, excuse me, we do have the ability to turn the switch and kill all electrical power, just isolating the battery. Alternator will not charge it. Nothing will draw on the battery. It is just going to come to the first terminal on the switch. That's it. So like I said, do I need to do this? No. Am I doing it just because I can? Yeah. I want to have it mounted on the back of the box. But where I'm going to make my life even more difficult is I bought 3 circuit breakers. The 3 circuits that I just talked about are going to have individual circuit breakers on them. And I'm thinking about mounting these one on top of each other, going down the box here. So 1, 2, 3. I've got 2 200 amp breakers. That will be for the starter circuit and the electrical current in the car. Another 200 amp breaker will go to the amplifiers for the stereo system, and then a 250 amp breaker, which is what the alternator will work through. So I'm probably going to drill 3 holes to run my wiring so I can come back to the switch on this side. And then I'll probably put 3 more holes so I can just have a clean wire coming out into the breaker, coming back through, and then I'll run them out of the back of the box. in order to make it clean so you can't see it, but the breakers will be extremely accessible. Makes sense. Thought about putting them on the back side of the box, but that makes no sense because then you can't see them, and they would be very difficult to get to. So that's just going to require a little bit of measuring in order to make sure that I get everything in place, make sure that they're all parallel, make sure that the holes are evenly spaced, just so I can make sure that everything looks clean, because that's half of the battle of what we're fighting now, making it look clean. So anyhow, I'll probably modify this plan, you know, a few times between now and when I'm finished, but that's my thought here for the minute. So let's get started. Let's expand a little bit on what I was talking about with the wiring just a second ago. This is a schematic, came with the switch, on how you need to wire up both your alternator and your starter. I'm going to carry it to the forward fuse box in the front of the car, and then put a terminal lug so I can run a wire directly to my solenoid, and then I can run a wire to the fuse panel up in the front. So that is going to mimic this wire. Oh, excuse me. Let's go back here to the starter. That's going to mimic this wire coming forward in the car going to the starter. The alternator is going to run back to one of the lugs also on the switch, like we talked about. And then in this diagram, they have two wires coming over to the positive terminal in the battery. I'm going to cheat just a little bit. I'm going to have one wire coming or going to the battery, and then I've done effectively the same thing as running two wires to the positive post. I have just used some 2/0 gauge, crimped these on, soldered them, and then heat shrink. So I have done the same thing. I've taken circuit or power from circuit A, and I've jumpered it over to B, so therefore the opposite sides of the switch will have power also, so the switch will work as advertised. But that is the intent of what I'm doing, and then the third circuit will be just for the amplifiers. All right, I'm thinking, since this is the top side of my switch, battery power coming in, jumper it over to the second circuit. I can pull two circuits off of one circuit off of the other. This one I can probably turn more down. That way, if I mount the switch lower in the box, down this direction, and I want it a little bit more towards this side, I can still, here where my pinky is, I can still probably make that turn with a heavier gauge wire in order to have it come out with 3 different holes here, and then mount my circuit breakers on this side. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I may end up moving the battery to this end of the box slightly, just to create some more room between the edge of the battery and this, which means I'll have to re-drill these 2 mount holes, move it forward in the box, so the battery, you know, the part that secures it will just move a little forward, because the battery doesn't take up the entire box, and I just need room for the switch. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put the camera up as I work, and we'll see what it looks like. All right, after a little bit of backwoods engineering, I did not have a 1-inch unibit. I only had a 7/8 unibit, so I had to come up 1/8 on that size. Probably not perfectly round, but for what I'm doing, it's just fine. I did not want to have a tight fit between a metal box and the top of the switch. I wanted just a little bit of insulation. You know, probably not needed, but again, I don't want rattles, I don't want shorts, I don't want an internal problem in the switch and then it ground out to, you know, the battery box and then to go to the frame. So this is a gasket off of a garden hose. Nothing more than that. So it just creates a little bit of insulation between the two. We'll also keep this from vibrating as bad. That's probably unimportant. So I am going to mount this on the box like so. Initially, the way that this is supposed to work is you only cut your hole for the size of your threads, and then you use this collar. Let's see if I can get this. You use this collar as your mounting surface for wherever you're mounting it to. I wanted to pull the switch in a little more, right? Because I am limited on space on the inside of the box. So I wanted to move this as far forward as possible. So I cut the hole to pull this collar in. And what I'm going to do to give myself a good mounting surface is I'm going to take this piece of PVC. I initially cut it off of a 3/4, it was just a plug for a threaded 3/4, so I cut this off the end. It fits well over this collar. I'm going to trim this down a fair amount, or I have trimmed it down a fair amount. So I'm going to put it over here, maybe a good washer, and then I can put my nut on it. This is not finished. I got to get the right hardware, but so the point will be well made, and that's what it's going to look like on this side. And then I'll have my switch. I'm not done with it yet, so please don't judge at this point. And then there is a sticker that'll go on the outside. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. Washer is not correct, and that spacer is not quite where I want it yet, although that's not far off, to tell you the honest truth, as far as the thickness that I need. And that would work extremely well. All right, so I just need to get the correct washer. I am happy with the thickness of that spacer. So back to the drawing board. What I'm doing here is I'm deburring the holes. All right, anytime you cut through metal, it leaves a, you know, some scarring. So just got a deburring tool and just stick it in the hole and just kind of go around, and it takes that rough edge completely off. Saves your fingers. Makes it look neater. If it's a ground, you get a better ground. All right, I have all our holes cut. All right, so we've got feed wire going to come out, then we've got a circuit breaker that's going to mount, and then the feed wire is going to go back inside, and then I'll have it run out of the back of the case. So it's a nice clean look. I got a little bit of burring that I need to clean up, but for some reason when I took the blue protective covering off, I've got this discoloration. So I'm going to take a little bit of Neverdull real quick and see if I can't get this to shine up, because it'll be a whole lot easier to get this, you know, looking polished now before I get everything on it. So that's my next step. Fortunately, the kit that I ordered only has 5, so I'm going to have to order some more of the 5/8 grommets. piece of cable. This is going to be the start of it. I'm going to come off of the cutoff switch, and I'm going to come to one of the 200 amp breakers. This will be my either my audio circuit or my starter circuit. So I cut a piece of 2-aught to match. I can't do much more wiring today because I have more wire on order, and I need to make sure that I have enough run for the starter circuit so I can get power back in the car. So this is the only one I'm going to do today. Went ahead and purchased some battery terminal ends. These are better than the hand crimp ones that, you know, the El Cheapo ones. So all I'm going to do is figure out my depth to remove my insulation to come up to the, you know, to the tip where it starts to narrow in here. Kind of mark it with my finger. I'll come in with a utility knife, gently score this as I rotate around. You can feel when you start to get to the wiring. Don't put too much pressure on it. Just kind of keep it so you're not damaging the wires. Once you get to this point, you can pull that out. Stick that in. All right. I like pushing it in a little bit so the insulation, you know, fits inside really nice and neat. Then this little tool helps you get a good solid crimp. I should probably put this on the concrete floor. It would be a little better, but all you do is pinch that. BFH. All right, find your spot. Voila, rather nice looking crimp. Voila. Now when the rest of my wiring comes in, because I don't know about you, but the price of wire is stupid right now. About $150 for 15 feet of this. I refuse to use the CCA or the copper plated aluminum, copper clad aluminum CCA wiring. I'm going with pure copper, a little bit more expense up front, but it will be worth it in the long run. Maybe, I don't know, makes me feel better. So once I get the rest of the wiring in, I'll run the other 2 leads over. Then as I run the wire from the front of the car, I'll bring it in through the back here, through this hole up in the front and around. That way I have circuit breaker protection for the car, for the amplifiers, and for the alternator. So until the wiring comes in, I'm pretty much stuck. I am going to set this in the car. I'll take one more final shot. I'm going to put the sticker on for the on-off and clean up where the switch is on this side that we installed, and I'll show you what it looks like in the car here in a few minutes. All right, let's do a little wrap-up video for today. So box is sitting in place. I did a little test fit, made sure that the battery make sure that the battery, you know, fits in place, and that I do have room where I put the cutoff switch in, and you know, just did some imaginary running of wires once I get more wire in, to make sure that you know, I can get everything effectively run without kinking, without touching. I think it looks good. I'm very happy with that. I'm very happy with the cleanliness. I guess that's the right word for this. It looks like it was done, you know, professionally or correctly at a minimum. The cutoff switch, you know, is very inconspicuous on the side of the box. The breakers, I think, are very appropriate to have easy access to them. So I'm extremely happy with this. Now I just need the other bundle of wire to come in and then mount the box and run the wiring. So this is going to be wrapped up in just a handful of hours because running wiring is not difficult, mounting the box is not difficult, so that's the easier part. I think the hard part's done. So I will do a second video when I get everything run, and I'm going to put some terminals up at the front just so I can make sure that everything is run correctly, and then upgrade the wiring on the alternator. That'll be the next piece. So probably next week before I get that video put up. Anyhow, I hope y'all have a great week, and thank you for watching.